The air on Vella La Vella is not air. It is a wet, green blanket, heavy with the smell of mold and diesel fuel. It is October 1943, and the Solomon Islands campaign grinds forward yard by bloody yard. Here, at the newly secured forward operating base, normal is the rhythmic thud of the Navy's construction battalions, the Seabees driving steel pylons into the mud, laying down the corduroy roads that keep the war from sinking entirely. The sound is a dull headache, a mechanical pulse against the jungle's incessant, high-pitched static. Insects, birds, and the distant, imagined whisper of the enemy mix into a single, oppressive drone. Major Elias Thorne, U.S. Marine Corps, observes this routine with a cold, analytical eye. He's attached to the 1st Marine Raider Battalion, but his current assignment is liaison and observation, which he translates as waiting and watching. He stands near the motor pool, a sea of churned mud, watching a young private attempt to clear a fouled fuel line on a jeep. The man curses quietly, his knuckles raw. The humidity is corrosive. It attacks everything. Metal rusts in hours, canvas rots in days, and men's tempers fray just as quickly. Thorne lights a cigarette, cupping the flame against the persistent drizzle. He is a tall man, lean, with the academic stoop of a man who spent more time in libraries than on parade grounds before the war. His gaze drifts from the struggling private to the captured Japanese equipment piled nearby. A Type 95 Hago tank, its green paint peeling, and stacks of 70-kilo rice bags already hardening with moisture and infested with weevils. He watches a corpsman treating a line of Marines for jungle rot, their feet pale and puckered. Everything here is a fight against decay. The enemy, Thorne muses, is only the second most dangerous thing on this island. The environment is the first. A runner approaches, salutes, and hands him a dispatch. It's another routine intelligence summary from G2. Subject, enemy coastal battery, 0400 hours. Location, grid 44 Baker, strength unknown. It is the same report they have received every day for a week. The battery remains, shelling the supply convoys. Conventional assaults have failed, swallowed by the terrain. Thorne folds the paper, his eyes fixed on the rotting pile of captured rice. A detail, something insignificant catches in his mind. The weevils, the mold, the speed of the decay. He looks back at the fouled fuel line of the jeep. An idea, unwelcome and indistinct, begins to form. The thought is absurd, and he pushes it away. He is a Marine Raider, trained to move fast, strike hard, and vanish. His job is kinetic. It involves M1 rifles, Thompson submachine guns, and K-bar knives. It is about applying precise, overwhelming force. Yet, the image of the moldy rice holds. He walks over to the pile, ignoring the stench. He kicks one of the bags and it splits, spilling a grey, dusty slurry. Nearby, a captured fuel drum sits, its contents likely contaminated with water and sediment. The problem is not the enemy's strength. It is their resilience. They live off this land, off these supplies, just as his own men do. He looks north beyond the perimeter, where the jungle canopy forms an unbroken, suffocating ceiling. The Japanese positions are not just defenses, they are ecosystems, fed by a complex root system of supply lines. The coastal battery at 44 Baker is just one fruit on a very large, very healthy tree. Thorne's mind, trained to see patterns in anthropology, sees a different kind of pattern here. He thinks about the struggling private, the jungle rot, the contaminated fuel, the infested rice. The solution isn't to chop at the branches. The solution is to poison the roots. The implications of this thought are unsettling. It feels like a different kind of war, a silent, patient, and deeply unclean one. It goes against the Raider creed. But as he hears the distant, hollow crump of the 44 Baker battery opening fire on the channel again, the absurdity begins to fade. It is replaced by a cold, sharp curiosity. What if the most effective weapon in this jungle is the jungle itself? What he doesn't realize, standing in the rain, is that this kernel of an idea, this insane method, will not just be whispered in briefing tents. It will be codified in classified manuals, and it will fundamentally alter how small units fight wars. The operational landscape of the South Pacific in late 1943 is a strategic nightmare for Allied planners. The Japanese Empire, though checked at Midway and pushed back on Guadalcanal, has mastered the art of island defense. They have established a porcupine strategy. Every island is a self-sustaining fortress, a network of interlocking bunkers, hidden artillery, and deeply entrenched infantry battalions. These bases, scattered across thousands of square miles of ocean from Rabaul to Bougainville, form a dense and lethal barrier. The Japanese soldier is disciplined, acclimated to the environment, and operates under a doctrine that considers surrender an unthinkable disgrace. The official G2 and Office of Naval Intelligence, ONI, reports piling up at Comsopac headquarters paint a grim statistical picture. Document ONI A224, dated September 1943, outlines the logistical resiliency of IJA jungle fortifications. It details how Japanese units can operate for weeks on minimal resupply, supplementing standard rations with local foraging and vast, hidden supply dumps. These dumps are the key. They are not centralized depots, but decentralized caches hidden in caves under dense jungle canopy, or even in submerged waterproofed containers. They are guarded by overlapping fields of fire and platoons of dedicated troops. An after-action report from the New Georgia campaign highlights the failure of conventional tactics. Operation Toenails, July-August 1943, U.S. forces, primarily the 43rd Infantry Division, land to seize the Munda Point airfield. Planners estimate the operation will take 1 week. It takes 6. The report notes, enemy resistance was fanatical and underestimated. Bypassed bunkers, believed neutralized, were often reoccupied. The jungle terrain rendered armor ineffective and provided perfect concealment for ambush. Our casualties were heavy, often for gains measured in feet. The cost of Munda, over 100 killed and 400 wounded for the Americans. The Japanese defense, though ultimately broken, proved devastatingly effective. This is the problem facing Major Thorne. The American war machine is built on industrial might and overwhelming firepower. It is designed to fight a European war of high-intensity conflict on open terrain. In the jungle, this machine chokes. Tanks sink in mud. Artillery barrages, devastating in the open, are often absorbed by the triple canopy jungle, the green cushion, leaving deep earth bunkers untouched. Air power is hampered by weather and the difficulty of identifying targets. The strategy becomes a brutal, frontal attrition. It is a meat grinder. The Japanese have 12 such primary bases in the northern Solomon's chain alone, 12 porcupines that must be cleared one by one. Each base is estimated to house between 5 Surzer and 10 shoeless troops. A memo from the War Office, dated October 10, 1943, discusses the projected casualty rates for the upcoming Bougainville campaign. The numbers are redacted, but the tone is cold. Planners are accepting a staggering cost in human lives as the inevitable price of island hopping. They are scheduling operations, allocating replacement troops and blood plasma, based on the statistical certainty that thousands will not return. Thorne reads these reports in the damp canvas of the intelligence tent. Sight, start. The data is precise. Cold and utterly hopeless. Sitka 13. It speaks of acceptable losses and attrition ratios. It maps out a war that will be won, but at a cost that feels nihilistic. The Japanese aren't just being fought, they are being excavated like tumors from the earth, and the surgery is killing the patient. The insane method that flickered in his mind, the mold, the weevils, the decay, is no longer just a curious thought. It is becoming a moral imperative. He sees a way to break the equation. The numbers on the page are sterile. 10,000 pounds of rice, 500 barrels of aviation fuel, an estimated 8,000 Japanese troops on Bougainville's Empress Augusta Bay. But these statistics are written in human blood. The reality of the island-hopping campaign is a daily litany of suffering that no after-action report can capture. It is the sound of a 20-year-old Marine from Ohio crying for his mother in a field hospital, his leg gone. It is the smell of gangrene in the tropical heat, a smell that clings to the surgeon's hands. It is the hollow-eyed, thousand-yard stare of the veterans who have survived one too many banzai charges. The human cost is measured in the letters that will never be written home. It is measured in the LSTs, landing ship tank, that drift offshore, their decks converted into makeshift morgues. The impossibility of the situation is not just strategic, it is emotional. Morale, that fragile currency of war, is being spent at an unsustainable rate. The jungle itself is a physical adversary. Men fight in ankle-deep mud that sucks at their boots. The rain is a constant cold sheet, turning camps into quagmires. This is where the true impossibility lies. The experts, the colonels with their maps and charts back at Pearl Harbor, see a linear problem. They see point A and point B, and they draw a line allocating the divisions necessary to cross it. They do not, or cannot, account for the spirit of the defense. They cannot quantify the terror of a night ambush, the psychological drain of never seeing the enemy who is firing at you. They cannot quantify the despair of watching your friends fall, one by one, to take a patch of ground that will simply be retaken the next day. A diary entry from a private in the 37th Infantry Division, found after the Munda campaign, captures the feeling. Day 40. I don't know what day it is. We attacked Hill 260 again. The Japs are still there, mortars all night, rain, always the rain. Charlie got it today. He just stopped, didn't even make a sound. I can't feel my feet. I think we will all die on this island. I don't think they can get us out. It can't be done. This is the consensus. The Japanese positions are too strong, the jungle too thick, the cost too high. The experts at the War Office have concluded that the only way to win is to overwhelm, to bring more ships, more planes, more men, and to simply accept the horrific losses. The Japanese defenses are, in effect, unbeatable by conventional maneuver. They can only be pulverized inch by inch. This acceptance of mass casualties is its own kind of madness. It is a resigned, bureaucratic hopelessness. When Major Thorne looks at this equation, he rejects the premise. He doesn't see an unbeatable fortress. He sees a complex system that is starving for one or two key ingredients. If you find this look into the stark realities of warfare compelling, it's because these stories of innovation born from desperation are a crucial part of our history. Stay with us, because the next chapter of how this impossible problem was challenged begins not on the battlefield, but in the mind of one unlikely man. Elias Thorne was not born a warrior. He was born in 1905 in the quiet, fog-draped hills of Northern California, the son of a botanist and a librarian. His childhood was not spent with firearms. It was spent with books, plant samples, and the indigenous Miwok guides who taught him how to read the land. He learned to see the forest not as a collection of trees, but as a single, complex, and interconnected organism. He learned how one small change, a diverted stream, a new insect, a fire, could cause a systemic collapse. He was quiet, observant, and deeply analytical. He pursued anthropology at Berkeley, specializing in the resource management of pre-industrial societies. His thesis, Systemic Collapse, the role of resource depletion in the Anasazi disappearance, It was considered brilliant but obscure. He argued that the Anasazi didn't just vanish, they were a complex society that became too rigid, too dependent on a single resource, maize, and a single method, irrigation. When a prolonged drought hit, their entire system failed, cascading into starvation, conflict, and migration. He was fascinated by how a great strength could, under pressure, become a fatal weakness. When the war broke out, Thorne was 36, working on a forestry project in the Philippines. He was evacuated in the chaos of late 1941, but not before witnessing the terrifying efficiency of the Japanese invasion. He saw how they used the land, how they moved light and fast, and how their logistical chain, while strained, was ruthlessly effective. He returned to the States, but the quiet life of an academic now felt impossible. He joined the Marines, not out of patriotism, but out of a cold, intellectual fury. He saw the Japanese Empire as a rigid, complex system, just like the Anasazi, and he wanted to find the drought that would bring it down. His unique background immediately flagged him for the newly formed Office of Strategic Services, OSS, the precursor to the CIA, but Thorne found their methods, sabotage, propaganda, too blunt. He transferred to the Marine Raiders, drawn by their emphasis on small unit autonomy and unconventional thinking. He excelled, not as a frontline charger, but as an intelligence officer, S2, who could predict enemy movements by analyzing their supply movements. He could, his fellow officers joked, tell you where a Japanese battalion would be in 3 days by looking at the contents of their latrines. This is the man standing in the mud of Vella La Vella. He is not a Red Mike Edson, a charismatic leader of men. He is a quiet, thoughtful predator. His quirk is that he carries a botanist's loupe in his breast pocket, and he is often seen examining mold on a piece of canvas or the insects burrowing into a sea ration crate. He understands decay, he understands systems, and as he stares at the G2 map, at the 12 invincible bases, he doesn't see 12 fortresses. He sees 12 rigid, over-specialized organisms, all feeding from the same trough. The idea crystallizes during a briefing. A grim-faced colonel, fresh from Washington, is explaining the plan for Bougainville. We will land the 3rd Marine Division here, at Empress Augusta Bay. We will establish a perimeter and seize the airfield. We expect significant resistance. Thorne listens to the plan, which is a carbon copy of the Munda campaign, a bloody frontal assault. He raises his hand. "Colonel," he says, his voice quiet, "why are we attacking the Hornets when we could just destroy the nest?" The colonel stares at him. "Explain yourself, Major." Thorne walks to the map. "Sir, all these positions, 44 Baker, the garrison at Torokina, they are all dependent on a handful of central supply depots. We've been trying to bomb them, but they're too well hidden. We've been trying to assault them, but they're too well defended. What if we don't try to destroy them? What if we contaminate them?" There is a heavy silence in the tent. "Contaminate," the colonel repeats, the word tasting like poison. Thorne explains, "Not with chemical weapons, not with gas, with something simpler, something systemic. The Japanese logistical chain is 90% reliant on rice. Their fuel is often low-grade and unfiltered. If we could introduce a catalyst, say a concentrated fast-acting fungal agent into their rice stores and a chemical abrasive into their fuel, the bases wouldn't be destroyed. They would simply stop working." The room erupts. One major calls it skullduggery. Another says it's impractical. But the colonel is silent, looking at the casualty projections in his hand. Thorne continues, "A 5-man raider team could infiltrate a depot, not with 500 pounds of C4, but with 5 pounds of this. Agent, it would be silent. The effects would be delayed. By the time they realize their food is inedible and their engines are seizing, it's too late. The system collapses. We aren't fighting them. We're letting the jungle fight them. A younger officer, a hotshot from the G3 operations section, scoffs. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You want to fight the Imperial Army with mold? We're Marines, Major, not chemists. Thorne meets his gaze. How many men did your last patrol lose, Lieutenant? How many yards did you gain? We are losing this war of attrition. This method changes the equation. The colonel looks at Thorne, his eyes unreadable. You're talking about biological warfare, Major. No, sir, Thorne corrects him. I'm talking about logistical warfare. I'm talking about giving the Japanese a taste of the same decay that's eating our own equipment every day. The colonel closes his briefing book. Major Thorne, you will not mention this again. You are dismissed. But as Thorne leaves the tent, the colonel makes a note. The idea is insane. It's also brilliant. He decides to give Thorne just enough rope to test it or to hang himself. Thorne is given a new classified assignment, Special Project Famine. He is not given a battalion. He is given a damp, forgotten corner of the CB motor pool on Vella Lavella. He's given 3 men and a stern warning from the colonel. This does not exist. If you are caught, you are on your own. If it fails, you are on the next transport back to San Diego. The colonel, however, makes one crucial concession. He introduces Thorne to a man as strange as he is. Lieutenant J.G. David Hobb, U.S. Navy Reserve. Hobb is not a soldier. He is a chemical engineer, drafted from a major agricultural corporation where his specialty was, ironically, grain preservation and pest control. He is a small, meticulous man with thick glasses who seems permanently annoyed by the jungle's lack of hygiene. Major, Hobb says, sniffing the air, this entire island is a petri dish. What precisely are we trying to do here, other than acquire malaria? Thorne lays out the plan. Hobb's annoyance turns to academic fascination. You want to accelerate spoilage? Not just spoilage, but a catastrophic weaponized decay, specifically for Oryza sativa. And petroleum? They set to work. The lab is a workbench under a sheet of corrugated tin. Their materials are requisitioned, a polite term for stolen, from captured Japanese dumps. Thorne's team, a hand-picked pair of raider scouts named Corporal Snake Hanna and Sergeant Pete Demo Davies, secure 50-kilo bags of Japanese rice and several drums of captured Type 92 fuel. Hobb begins his experiments. He needs a biological agent that is potent, fast-spreading, and, crucially, delayed. It can't be obvious. Hobb identifies 2 candidates. For the rice, he begins to cultivate a highly concentrated strain of Aspergillus flavus, a common mold, but one he can refine to produce aflatoxins at a rapid rate, especially in the 90% humidity of the Solomons. It won't just spoil the rice, Major, Hobb explains, his eyes bright behind his glasses. It will make it toxic. Within 48 hours of exposure, this entire bag will be lethal. For the fuel, he creates something even simpler, a fine, inert powder, visually indistinguishable from dust. It's a mix of silica and a polymer agent. It will settle in the bottom of the drums, Hobb says, but as soon as it's agitated and mixed with fuel, it will turn into a gelatin. It won't just foul a fuel line. It will turn the entire fuel tank into a solid brick of jelly. It will seize an engine block permanently. The preparation is tense. The team works only at night, under the cover of the motor pool's generator noise. Snake and Demo practice infiltration, their faces blackened with charcoal and mud. They are not planting explosives, they are planting small, canvas packets of Hobb's dust and spores. They have to be silent, invisible. The goal is not a fiery explosion, but a quiet, insidious infection. They are preparing for a secret test, Thorn identifies a target, a small, abandoned Japanese patrol cache on a nearby islet, discovered by PT boats but deemed not worth the ordnance. The air is thick and still as they approach the islet on a rubber raft, paddling against the black tide. The jungle here is even denser, the silence absolute. They move inland, Snake Hannah in the lead, his movements fluid, reptilian. He finds the tripwire a second before Demo's boot touches it. He disarms it with a surgeon's care. They find the cache, a small, earth-covered bunker. Inside, stacks of rice bags, ammo cans, and a dozen fuel drums. It is a perfect microcosm of a major depot. This is the moment. The first test. Thorn gives the signal. The plan is simple. Demo will place a standard block of C4 with a 10-minute timer. They will paddle out and observe the conventional result. They set the charge, paddle back into the mangroves, and wait. The explosion is sharp, violent. It echoes across the water. A plume of black smoke rises. They wait an hour, then return. The bunker is a smoking crater. But Thorn feels a sinking disappointment. "It's loud," he whispers. "It's a dinner bell. Any guard within 5 miles just heard that. And look." He points to the perimeter. Several fuel drums were thrown clear, dented but intact. Rice is scattered everywhere, but much of it is still edible, just dirty. It's inefficient. It's loud. They return the next night. Hob is with them. The target is a second, identical cache on the far side of the islet. This time, there are no explosives. Snake and Demo move with ghost-like speed. They slit the seams of the rice bags, inserting Hob's small, spore-filled packets. They pry the lids off the fuel drums, and Hob himself carefully empties his silica polymer dust into each one, watching it settle to the bottom. The entire operation takes 4 minutes. They are in and out. No sound, no light, nothing. They return to Vella La Vella, and they wait. This is the hardest part, the waiting. 48 hours later, they return to the islet. From the outside, the cache is untouched. It looks exactly as it did before. Thorn's heart sinks. He pulls back the canvas flap. The smell hits him first. It is not the normal smell of mold. It is a sharp, acidic, chemical stench. The rice bags are moving. They are covered in a thick, velvety black and yellow mold, visibly pulsing in the humid air. The cache is no longer a food store. It is a toxic waste site. Hob smiles, a thin, dry smile. Now, the fuel. Demo takes a long stick and dips it into one of the drums. He pulls it out. The bottom half is coated in a thick, translucent jelly. "My God," Demo whispers. "It's like axle grease." Thorn looks at the ruined supplies. No explosion, no fire, no noise, just quiet, systemic, and total neutralization. He thinks of the 12 bases on the map. He thinks of the colonel. The test is a success. The insane method works. If stories like this, where a single brilliant idea can change the course of a conflict, fascinate you, stay with us. The next chapter of wartime innovation might surprise you, because now Thorn has to convince a room full of skeptics that the future of warfare is not a bomb, but a fungus. The atmosphere in the Comsopac advanced briefing tent is thick with cigar smoke and skepticism. Major Thorn stands before a map of the Bougainville Theatre. In the front row sits Colonel Vance, the man who had dismissed him, alongside 2 operations officers from the 3rd Marine Division and an admiral's aide who looks bored. Thorn has his evidence in a sealed metal box at his feet. He has been summoned, not praised. His secret test, while successful, had been observed by a long-range patrol that reported his unauthorized movements. He is here to defend his insane project or be court-martialed for it. "Major Thorn," Colonel Vance begins, his voice like gravel, "I have a report here that says you've been running a private science experiment. It says you've wasted valuable time, endangered a fire team, and frankly gone completely native. Before I have you relieved of duty, you have 5 minutes to explain why your actions are not grounds for a general court-martial. Thorne meets his gaze, calm and steady. Sir, I was not wasting time. I was proving a concept that can save thousands of lives. He nods to an aide, who dims the lanterns. Thorne places 2 grainy photographs on the easel. The first shows the results of the conventional test, the smoking crater, the scattered but salvageable supplies. This is what 5 pounds of C4 does. It's loud, it's messy, and it's inefficient. It announces our presence and, as you can see, fails to destroy roughly 30% of the target's supplies. He places the second set of photos next to the first. They show the interior of the second cache, the black pulsating mold on the rice, the gelatinous goo on the stick. The tent goes silent. The Admiral's aide leans forward. What the hell am I looking at, Major? You are looking at the future of logistical warfare, sir, Thorne replies. You are looking at 100% destruction, achieved in total silence with 0 risk of discovery by a 2-man team in under 5 minutes. The rice is not just spoiled, it's poison. The fuel is not just contaminated, it's a solid. That entire cache was rendered 100% combat ineffective in 48 hours. No noise, no fire, no alert. The G3 operations officer, the one who had mocked him, stands up. This is a stunt, Colonel. It's a parlor trick. We are fighting a war, not running a damn laboratory. What happens when our own men accidentally stumble on this filth? The same thing that happens when they stumble on an unexploded bomb, Major, Thorne counters, his voice hardening. Except my filth doesn't go off by accident. It is precise, it is targeted, and it only affects the supplies we target. It is, in fact, the most discriminate weapon in this theater. He turns to Colonel Vance. Sir, G2 estimates the Japanese have 12 major supply depots on Bougainville, hidden in the highlands. The 3rd Marine Division will be landing at Empress Augusta Bay here. He points to the map. They will be fighting for every yard, supplied by these exact depots. The current plan requires us to find and destroy each one, with air power or ground assault. The projected cost is significant. The room understands the euphemism. My proposal, Thorne continues, is Operation Famine. Give me Lieutenant Hobb and my raider team. Instead of landing with the 3rd Marine Division, we land before them. We insert via submarine 30 days ahead of the main invasion. We don't attack the garrisons. We don't blow up bridges. We infect the 12 depots. We give them a 48-hour incubation period. By the time the main force hits the beach, the Japanese army on Bougainville will have no food and no fuel. The skepticism in the room is palpable. It's too clean, too simple. You're asking me to risk the success of an entire invasion on your mold, Major, Vance says. No, sir, Thorne says. I'm offering you an insurance policy. The invasion will proceed as planned, but I am betting that when our Marines hit that beach, they will not be met by a counterattack of functioning tanks. They will be met by soldiers who haven't eaten in a week and whose vehicles will not start. Thorne opens the metal box at his feet. Inside is a small canvas packet of Hobbs dust and a glass vial of the spores. This is not dishonorable, Colonel. It is simply efficient. The jungle is already using this weapon against us. It's time we used it against them. The question isn't whether this is war as we know it. The question is, do you want to win or do you want to fight fair? Colonel Vance stares at the box, then at the map. The casualty estimates for the Bougainville landing are sitting on his desk. He picks up the vial. Major, if this works, you'll be a hero. If it fails, or if a single one of our own men is harmed by this, I will personally ensure you are buried so deep in a military prison, your name will be forgotten. He turns to his aide. Get me the submarine force commander, and get Major Thorne whatever he needs. This meeting never happened. The USS Gato, a sleek black shadow, surfaces in the moonless dark, miles off the coast of Bougainville. It is November 1st, 1943. Operation Famine is active. Major Thorne and his four-man team, Hob, Snake and Demo, disembark into two rubber rafts. Their loadout is light, no heavy machine guns, no mortars. Just their standard-issue weapons and two lead-lined cases containing Hob's agents. For 30 days they are ghosts. They move only at night, guided by local trackers and Thorne's own uncanny sense of the land. They move inland into the steep, rain-soaked highlands of the Crown Prince Range. This is the impenetrable heart of the Japanese defense. The tension is unbearable. They are not hunting men. They are hunting supplies. Snake Hanna proves his worth, bypassing patrols, tripwires and listening posts with an animal instinct. They find the first depot on day 4. It's a massive cave system, its entrance masked by a waterfall, guarded by a full platoon. They watch it for 48 hours, mapping the guard rotations, the delivery schedules, the location of the rice and fuel stores. On the third night they move. Hob is shaking, but Thorne is perfectly calm. Snake and Demo are specters. They slip past the sentries during a shift change. Demo neutralizes one with a silent K-bar. They are inside. The air is damp, thick with the smell of rice and oil. It's a logistical goldmine. For 10 minutes they work, slitting bags, pouring the dusty spores, opening fuel drums, adding the silica gel. They are out before the next patrol passes. No alarm, no sound. They melt back into the jungle, leaving a time bomb behind. They repeat this 11 more times. It is a grueling, terrifying month. They live in the mud, hunted, soaking wet, subsisting on cold rations. On day 18 they are almost compromised. A patrol stumbles upon their cold camp. A brief, vicious firefight erupts. Demo takes a round to the shoulder. Thorne and Snake eliminate the patrol, but they must move fast. Hob, the chemist, is forced to become a field medic, stitching Demo up while they hide in a swamp. But they don't stop. They hit depot number 9, Demo bleeding through his bandage. By day 29, they have reached their final target, a massive fuel dump near the Torokina airfield. They are exhausted, sick with fever, but driven by a cold purpose. They infect the final cache. 12 bases, 12 supply nodes, all poisoned. Their mission is complete. They move to their extraction point, a lonely beach on the west coast, and wait. As dawn breaks on November 1st, 1943, they hear it. Not the sound of their sub, but the sound of the invasion, the deep, rolling thunder of the U.S. Navy's preparatory bombardment. The 3rd Marine Division is hitting the beaches at Empress Augusta Bay. Thorne watches through his binoculars. The real test is now. The Japanese counterattack is expected to be swift and brutal. G2 projected a full regimental assault, spearheaded by Type 95 tanks, within 6 hours of the landing. The Marines on the beach dig in, bracing for the impact. 6 hours pass. Nothing. 12 hours. Only sporadic rifle fire. The expected massive counterattack never comes. A field report from the 3rd Marine Division, dated November 2nd. Resistance at the beachhead was lighter than anticipated. Enemy units appear disorganized. Captured prisoners speak of widespread sickness and a critical lack of supplies. Multiple Type 95 tanks were found abandoned on jungle tracks, their engines apparently seized. Enemy morale appears to be collapsing. The Marines secure the perimeter. The airfield is taken in a fraction of the time and at a fraction of the cost of the Munda campaign. Colonel Vance reads the reports from his flagship. He finds the debrief from Thorne's team, delivered after their successful extraction. It is a simple 12-line report listing the coordinates of each depot and a single word: infected. Vance looks at the casualty figures for the landing, which are astonishingly low. He then finds Thorne's report and with his own pen stamps it top secret, eyes only, and buries it in an operational file. There will be no medals for this. It is too efficient, too clean, and too insane to be public. Thorne's method worked. The 12 bases were not destroyed. They were neutralized, eaten from the inside out by a weapon born from the jungle itself. The immediate consequence of Operation Famine was the rapid, almost anticlimactic success of the Bougainville campaign. Sight must start. The Japanese 17th Army, cut off from its logistical routes, was rendered combat ineffective. Sight 14. They were not defeated in a single glorious battle. They were bypassed, isolated, and left to wither on the vine, a new phrase that entered the military lexicon. The strategic impact was immediate. The data was undeniable. The unbeatable island fortress strategy had a critical, systemic vulnerability. The capture of the Torokina airfield allowed Allied air power to begin the final neutralization of Rabaul, the linchpin of Japanese power in the South Pacific. In the long term, Thorne's insane method was quietly and quickly absorbed into the rapidly evolving doctrine of special warfare. Lieutenant Hobbs' formulas were classified. His research passed to the Chemical Warfare Service and the newly formed OSS. The final report, codenamed Project Famine, became required reading for a new generation of unconventional warriors. It laid the groundwork for future psychological operations, psyops, and logistical interdiction tactics. The idea that a 5-man team could neutralize an entire army, not with bullets, but with chemistry and biology, was a paradigm shift. Major Elias Thorne himself, however, did not become a household name. He was not celebrated in Life magazine. His insane method was too subtle, too unsettling for public consumption. War for the home front needed to be a story of industrial might and battlefield courage, not one of quiet, systemic decay. After Bougainville, Thorne was transferred from the Raiders. He was reassigned to the OSS and spent the remainder of the war in the China-Burma-India theater, applying his principles against Japanese supply lines on the Asian mainland. After the war, he resigned his commission. He returned to California, not to academia, but to the quiet forestry work of his youth. He never spoke of Operation Famine. His fellow raiders, Snake and Demo, rotated back to the States, their stories of a ghost mission dismissed as jungle-drunk fantasies. Hobb returned to his chemical corporation, applying his wartime knowledge to create new pesticides and food preservatives. The official histories of the Bougainville campaign would credit the victory to the bravery of the 3rd Marine Division and the overwhelming power of the U.S. Navy. The quiet, biological coup that made it all possible remained a secret, buried in a classified file. Thorne, the man who saw the jungle as a weapon, preferred it that way. He died in 1978, his obituary mentioning only his service as a Marine major and his lifelong love of the California wilderness. The war in the Pacific was not just a clash of fleets and armies. It was a clash of ideas. It was an industrial war fought in a pre-industrial environment, and the side that adapted fastest won. Elias Thorne's story is a powerful, if quiet, testament to this truth. His method, targeting the systemic vulnerability of an enemy rather than their kinetic strength, has profound parallels today. Modern warfare is increasingly fought not on a physical battlefield, but in the realm of logistics, information, and systems. A modern cyber attack that targets a nation's power grid or financial system is a direct descendant of Thorne's thinking. It is Operation Famine, executed with code instead of mold. It seeks to neutralize, not destroy. It aims to create a systemic collapse from within, causing chaos and paralysis without firing a single shot. In disaster response, in engineering, and even in space exploration, we see this same principle. The most resilient systems are not always the strongest, but the most adaptable. The greatest threats are often not explosions, but simple cascading failures, a single O-ring failing, a line of code overwritten. The damp, rotting jungle of Bougainville seems a world away from our clean digital age. But the lesson remains. The structures we build, the systems we rely on, are often far more fragile than they appear. They are all, in their own way, dependent on a supply line of food, of power, of data, of trust. The true innovator, the true threat, is the one who sees how to silently and precisely sever that line. The bunkers and bases Thorne targeted, long since swallowed by the jungle, are silent witnesses to this principle. They were not beaten by overwhelming force, but by a quiet, insistent idea. Every great idea begins as an act of defiance against impossibility. It is the refusal to accept the expert opinion that something can't be done. It is the courage to see the world not as it is, but as a system of interconnected parts, and to find the one small lever that can move it all. What impossible ideas do you think could change the world?